Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're out here at the range to take a look at a Steyr Scout, but it's a little bit of a different Steyr Scout than last time. This is a 376 Steyr Scout, or as Jeff Cooper would have much preferred it be called, a Dragoon Scout. Now, the idea behind this is that the cartridges that were generally specified for the Steyr Scout concept, basically 308 Winchester, are not necessarily satisfactory for large game hunting in Africa, which is one of the main things that the rifle was more or less intended for. There are a lot of African countries that actually have some legislation requiring no less than a 3.375-inch bullet for dangerous game hunting, as well as, frankly, larger game, buffalo, that sort of thing. Something you maybe wouldn't be all that confident shooting with a 308 or a 7mm 08. So in 1999, Steyr and Hornady teamed up and designed the 376 Steyr Cartridge basically to be the largest, physically largest cartridge that they could fit in the existing Steyr Scout magazine well and receiver, making sure that it had that 375-inch bore diameter to be basically continent-wide legal for hunting in Africa, and otherwise meet the requirements of the Steyr Scout concept. Jeff Cooper did this at first with a rifle he called his Lion Scout, which is basically the same sort of form factor, but at that point it was in 350 Remington Magnum. When Steyr launched this in '99, what they were basically doing was providing the commercialized version of that concept. Now, in the years since, the 376 Steyr cartridge really hasn't taken off. There aren't any other companies that have released rifles for it. Ammunition has always been a little bit tricky to get your hands on. Today it can be ordered online, but that wasn't really the case in 1999. And so, interestingly, the cartridge has kind of been eclipsed by the 375 Ruger. Both of these cartridges basically trying to duplicate the performance, or get as close to duplicating the performance as possible, of the original, the African big game cartridge, the 375 H&H. So before we do a little bit of shooting, and we are absolutely going to do some shooting with this because I'm really curious just how bad the recoil is going to be in it, let's take a quick look at those three cartridges side by side so we can see what we're actually dealing with here. Okay, so we've got a couple of different cartridges here to take a look at. These two guys on the left, these are 375 H&H, and this is a cartridge that was first marketed in 1912. It's over 100 years old, and it is really the gold standard of big game African hunting. And the standard loading on this is a 270 grain bullet at about 2,700 feet per second. Now, over here on the right, we have our 376 Steyr, and you can see this has been designed to fit in a Steyr Scout magazine. Basically, what is the longest case that we can get to utilize the existing action and magazine? That makes a lot of sense. This cartridge was actually based on the 9.3 by 64 Brenneke, and its performance isn't quite as hot. Out of the same standard length barrel, this is doing about 2,600 feet per second with a 270 grain bullet. So about 100 feet per second less, which frankly is fairly impressive given how much shorter the case is. Now, one of the reasons that a short cartridge like this is desirable is, for example, here we have a long action magazine, which would be set up to fit something like 375 H&H. With a cartridge this long, you have a longer receiver and a longer bolt throw. That's going to make the rifle heavier because there's more material, and it means if you are trying to cycle the rifle under stress, the longer that bolt throw is, the more likely that you're going to accidentally short stroke it. So if you can get a shorter cartridge, why not? Especially if you can then have it a technically short action cartridge that can use a short action receiver. Now, in the years since 1999, when 376 Steyr was released, there's been another cartridge that's come on the market to do basically the same thing, and that is the 375 Ruger. This was released in 2007, and it's really taken off far more than the Steyr cartridge did. There are more companies making rifles for it, and this is actually a higher performance cartridge than the original H&H. This will do like 2850 with a 270 grain bullet out of a standard length barrel. This is pretty close, but doesn't quite fit a short action magazine. So this requires a different receiver than would have been capable with a Steyr Scout. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and do some actual shooting with all three of these. We'll start with the lightest, and then we'll move up to the Ruger and the Holland & Holland. All right, I have an elk target at 50 yards. This is 376 Steyr. One thing that I'm really curious about, I've read a number of reports that the magazine falls out when you fire it, the spare magazine in the buttstock, simply because the polymer stock flexes on recoil, which is kind of to be expected. So we're curious to see if that happens and what the recoil is like on this thing. So here we go. All right, this pith helmet doesn't work. It comes down in front of my eyes. That's actually not terrible. And the magazine stayed in. Let's do another one. Yeah, you'll feel that for sure. I would not want to shoot this prone. I definitely wouldn't want to go through like 5 rounds trying to zero it prone. But, you know, excitement of the moment, actually taking an animal, I bet you would not really even think about the recoil on that. So let's try the next thing up. Well, let's take a look and make sure I actually hit that guy first. And then let's step it up to either H&H or Ruger. That's not really half bad at all. I'm going to tape those up and let's see how much my shooting degrades as we punch the recoil up some. Let's go ahead and do the 375 H&H next. On paper, that should be the next step up in terms of muzzle energy. All right, for our 375 H&H Magnum, we have a Model 70, pre-64 of course. Kevlar stock. This was designed to meet basically the Scout rifle criteria as well. This was custom built by Robar here in Arizona. So I've got 2 rounds of this. Let's give those a try. This one, we're shooting just with iron sights today. And an outgrowth of the Ching sling. This is a Rhodesian sling, which is designed to work as just a general 2-part strap, or you can set this loop up for, there we go, for a shooting sling, which I am definitely going to do for 375 H&H Magnum. That is very similar to the 376 Steyr. I'm actually hard pressed to say if it's better or worse. Let's do another one. Ow! I think it's worse. I think the Steyr is a softer shooting rifle than this behemoth, despite the nice recoil pad on there. All right, so this was iron sights only. Let's see if I actually managed to hit the guy without magnification. Well, that's a little bit embarrassing. We got that guy, and probably, no, that one's coming the wrong direction. I don't even know where the other, that one, that's our other shot. We'll tape him just for kicks. So, optics and magnification are nice. Let's go back and let's try our third rifle, which should be the most painful, the 375 Ruger, which on paper has the most potent ballistics. All right, for our third and final rifle, 375 Ruger, we have appropriately a Ruger action. This is a Ruger M77 action, built by Robar as well. Again, a Kevlar stock, and they call this the Robar Dragoon. This one actually has a detachable box magazine, and we've got it set up with a scout scope here. So let's see how much I regret this. All right, the sling's set up for someone with a little bit longer arms than me, so we'll go without it this time. Huh. That's actually not bad. It's funny, the thing that hurt was I had my hand too close to the sling swivel and it came swinging back and knocked me in the finger. All right. All right, one more. Might have been a little high on that. This is another one that potent, especially in a light rifle. This meets the Cooper Scout rifle criteria of 7.5 pounds for a Dragoon Scout, where you're allowed a little extra weight because you're getting a lot more kablooey out of it. A nice soft recoil pad. I can totally see this being a perfectly acceptable, perfectly great hunting rifle. The recoil's more than you would want to, go through 100 rounds prone long-range fire, but for a rifle that you're going to have to carry a lot and only shoot a couple of times, very nice. Let's take one more trip down to the target and see if I hit it. All right, well, I've got some practice to do, but I was better with that one than with the previous. So one a little low, one a hit, although a bit high. I have to say, after all of this, honestly, the Steyr Scout in 376, I think, would be my favorite of these rifles. Normally, one of the things I particularly like about it is the bipod. I would be hesitant to ever use the bipod with that rifle, I think, because I don't want to shoot that thing sitting down. The nice thing about shooting standing is you rock with the rifle, and that makes the recoil a lot more pleasant. When you shoot prone, man, all the recoil just gets pounded right into your shoulder. But it was my best shooting. I think it's the most comfortable. Unfortunately, the problem is, as a matter of market reality, the 376 Steyr Cartridge just hasn't been widely adopted, and 375 Ruger has really taken it over. So it's not necessarily, one of the criteria of the Scout rifle was that ammunition should be readily available, and the 376 just doesn't quite meet that anymore. It's unfortunate, because it actually is a nicer, more pleasant rifle than I was anticipating. No. I would like to give a big thanks to Patriot Products of Arizona and their Universal Sight Tool for taking the time to come out with their 3 rifles here for me to play with and shoot and bring to you guys on camera. Definitely check them out, and thanks for watching.